What's up? What's up? It's time for Done Way Past Funny with your host, G.D. Fenderson. Join us as we discuss the arts, science, and business of comedy with comedians and comedian adjacent. With this episode's guest, Randy Levin. It's time to get down and get dope with Done Way Past Funny. Hi, welcome to Done Way Past Funny, where we discuss the arts, science, psychology, and business of comedy with comedians and comedian adjacent. I'm your host, G.D. Fenderson, certified forensic humorist at large, but I'm losing weight, so I tell myself. My guest today is Randy Levin, former comedian and current co-host of the String Theory Guitar Obsessed documentary. Randy, welcome.
Thanks for having me. Do I call you GD or do I call you Glenn? I'm so confused.
That's a good question. For the purposes of this show, let's just say GD, only because I don't want to confuse them.
Okay.
That's all. It doesn't matter. I answer to both. It's funny. I only use the GD because this is supposed to be about you. So let me tell you how I got I'm gonna cut so Randy, all this other stuff gets cast aside, I guess, but I want to, if you don't mind, tell people a little bit about yourself, where you're located, what you're up to, whatever, a little brief 30-second bio, and how they can stalk you if you want them to stalk you.
I'm in New York. I hate to admit it, but Long Island, but I try to avoid saying Long Island. That's just New York. Sounds cooler. And I was a stand-up comic for 20 years, made my living at it. Then I watched Dead Poets Society one too many times, and I became a high school teacher, and that was 10 miserable years after that. And then I walked away from that, and I started my own little company helping kids getting into college. And that's really that's my day job. And then, the documentary fell in my lap, and I did this guitar documentary. And so I have a boring, stupid life. I have a wife. I have 2 kids in college, and which means I'm going to be selling my kidney soon to pay for college. And that's about it. And I, hang out.
You didn't do a good job raising your kids because you're supposed to raise scholarship babies,
Yeah, white, Jewish, it's really hard for that, We tried to check off Eskimo and, or trans.
Well, but one of them is Momo, so you just could have written Eskimomo.
That's true. That would have been kind of cool. Yeah.
And Eskimomo and Eskajojo.
Yeah, that would have been nice. Oh, speaking of which, Jojo just called me.
Oh.
No, I'm hanging. No.
If you need to take that, you can take that. Oh, okay.
If she needs bail money, I could, call later.
Well, that's why you're supposed to have twins. That's what twins are for. It's like you got the wrong one. I'm the good one.
Right.
Now, Randy, you said you were former comedians. So I want to know, this is a 2-part question. What got you into comedy? And then what got you out of comedy?
Oh, good question. So when I was a kid, I was really goofy, and my father did magic. So the first thing I really was is a magician, which I'm not, it's supposed to be nobody likes magicians or whatever. But, I did magic, but I was always very funny. And the more magic I did, I was funnier, I was becoming funnier, so I wanted to do less magic, but without name dropping. A friend of mine was really close friends with Paul Reiser before Paul was famous.
Okay.
So she introduced me, and what do I do? Where do I go? And he brought me basically to the Improv in New York City, and I got 3 minutes on stage, and it was awful, but I got hooked. I just got hooked. That's the interesting thing I think about all the arts, but especially comedy is, back in the day, this is the comedy boom. So the comedy clubs would have these audition nights. You would have like 3 minutes. And then if they liked you, they bring you back, you do 5 minutes, and that kind of thing. And then maybe if you're really lucky, you get a weeknight spot at 12:30 in morning. But that audition night was packed.
Right.
But most of those people disappeared after that first night because 3 minutes in front of 4 drunk people is really hard. So the difference
these 5 drunk people. You need at least 5 drunks to make a quorum.
Exactly. But the thing is, even if you suck, like even if you bomb, if you got that drive, you're like, oh, I'm coming back.
Right.
Where most people, they go, oh, this is awful, I'm never doing this again. I never thought of it before this way, but I used to skydive, and it's sort of like skydiving in the sense that
tandem or free fall.
I did free fall.
Okay, you did the real one.
Yeah, but tandem, what's interesting is most people that do tandem once go, that was fun, never doing that again. I did tandem and I went, when do I free fall? When do I get this guy? When do I get off his back?
Oh, so you did both.
Well, yeah, the first time a lot of people just do tandem. Not everybody. Most people do a static line at first, but I had the opportunity to do a tandem jump. So I did the tandem jump and I was like, sign me up. And but a lot of people, like they do the tandem jump. And they go, that was amazing. That was great. I'm leaving now. I never want to come back. So with comedy, the first time it's awful. You go, that was amazing. I got to do that again. Where most people are like, I'm done. So that was the very beginning of it.
Now, so you knew Paul Reiser when he was still Paul Rising.
Exactly. Now, we weren't buddy. Like, I mean,
right.
If I knew what was going to happen to him, I would have, stayed really good friends with him. But, but yeah, he's the guy that sort of introduced me to it all. And I got the bug. As far as why I left, man, that's a really long story. But the long and short of it is I rode that wave as long as I could. I moved to LA because I thought I was going to have my own sitcom. Surprise, I didn't have one.
What?
Yeah, I know. Didn't you read about it in Variety?
I thought I remembered not seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. I ended up, I was married before. So I was married, lost all my money, got divorced, came back, crawling back to New York. I did, I was able to piece things together, but by then the comedy boom had sort of died. But I will tell you 2 stories. You could edit it out or whatever.
Oh, no, we're keeping.
These were the moments. They happened back to back, a week apart, that made me say, time to go. Because what happened was when I came back and then eventually I became a teacher, I was still doing it on the side. I was still doing it for fun.
All right.
But to be honest, it wasn't really fun anymore. And I'll tell you why. And this as a comedian. If you don't, when you're just doing it every few weeks or whatever, you want to make sure you bring your A game because they won't ask you back. Right. But that means I had nowhere to test out new material. So I was basically doing the same stuff over and over again that I've done for 1,000 years, because anytime I had new material, well, I only have 20 minutes and I got to bring my A game because, I want to come back here in 2 months. So I was just basically, I remember an interview with Billy Joel where somebody asked him, when do you take a song out of your set? And he said, when I'm playing it and I'm thinking to myself, when I go back to the hotel, I think I'll order a tuna salad for room service. And I found myself, on stage, like I think I'm going to take the LIE. Now, maybe I'll take the Northern Expressway. Maybe that's easier. So, but because it was the same shit, but I still loved getting on stage.
Right.
But the 2 deciding nights, one was, so we were having our kitchen redone, and the contractor said, hey, I'm going to Governor's Comedy Club tonight. I'm going to see Paul Reiser. And now I never assumed he'd have access to Paul, even though it's a small club. Because if I knew that, I would have written a note. Now, in the olden days, that was my club. I could have opened for Paul.
Right.
But at this point, I didn't even know who's in charge. And it was kind of like, damn it. But I mentioned, I told him, like I told you, the whole story with Paul. The next day he comes over, he goes, you lied to me. I went, what do you mean? He goes, I got to meet Paul. I said to him, hey, guess who I saw yesterday? Randy Levin. And Paul Reiser went, who's she? And that just kind of went. Now the truth is, he would never remember my name, but if I wrote him a note and I gave the circumstances, the friend he knew, he'd know exactly who I was. But who she kind of killed me. And then a week later, and this was the moment I went, I'm done. As you know, when you just start out in comedy and you're sitting in the green room, the veteran comedians are talking about gigs, bookers, and things that you have no clue who these people are, what they're talking about. And they're like, hey, you should call so-and-so. Oh, they'd love you. You should. And you're just sitting there like listening. A week later, I did a show. I knew the two comedians on the show, people that started way after me. They know who I am, but they're sitting there having that conversation. Wow. Oh, and names I never heard of. They're kissing each other's ass, going, you should call. They would love you. Oh, shoot. And I'm just sitting there like this and going, I'm Willie Loman. It's like it's over. There's a great old, there's 5 lives of an actor. It could be comedians too. Who's Randy Levin? Get me Randy Levin. Get me another Randy Levin. Get me a young Randy Levin. Who's Randy Levin? As soon as that conversation I was there listening to, I went, yeah, I'm done. And so my last show, like a couple weeks later, was at Mohegan Sun. And I knew it would be in front of like 1,000 people and it was going to be a really good weekend and fun. And so I thought that's the perfect swan song. So my wife came with me. I did this. It was a great show. And I'm like, done. That's it. And then I kind of walked away. So, yeah. I mean, because with comedy too, and, at a certain point, you sort of age out if you're not keeping really contemporary and keeping up with it. And, I wasn't able to because I had a real job and there was nowhere for me to test it. I'm certainly now, I had a wife, I had, the 2 little babies, I'm not spending my nights going to different open mic nights again. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah. I don't want to make this about me, but yeah. Now, with the documentary, well, even still, because like I said, just talking with you and just seeing your energy, you still have the comedian. I still see a comedian in you.
So it's funny you say that, and I got to remember his name. This is killing me right now. I got to think of his name. He was, oh man, I got to look it up. He was Frank Sinatra's opening act.
Okay.
I want to give him props. So wait, Frank Sinatra's open. Oh, Tom Dreesen.
Okay.
Tom Dreesen, and he's a Facebook friend kind of guy. And when I had quit, when I retired from comedy, the thing that's awful about like retiring from comedy, like when you leave a real job, there's a party, there's cake,
everybody knows you're gone.
When you're a comedian and you go, yeah, I'm done. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody notices anything. It's just, you're just done. You know what I mean?
They can't tell the difference between you being done and you being hitting a dry spell.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I posted this really kind of, heartfelt thing about quitting, quitting. And Tom Dreesen wrote to me, you're always a comedian. You will always be a comedian, whether it's in your living room or on stage. You have the soul of a comedian, and don't forget that. And so I think there is some truth to people like you and me that the reason we're comedians is because we have that's who we are.
Yeah.
We just get lucky sometimes to do that on stage in front of people. But even if you're in the living room with your mom and your sister and your brother, you could still be a comedian or, funny.
Yeah. Now, with being a former illusionist, magician,
yes.
Yeah. Did the comedy, let's put it this way, did you become funnier because the magic became how should I put it? If a magic trick doesn't go right, you got to do something to cover that up. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah,
or
I just think that at the beginning, magic was I was a magician. It was like magician.
yeah.
But the more my personality came through, I was just funnier to the point like, oh, I don't even need to do this trick because I just did 5 more minutes and I know. So it really became it was an excuse to get on stage to learn how to do comedy.
Now, how much of what you learned from being a magician, how much of that transferred to comedy?
I think just stage presence. I think
Okay.
that's really it. Just the not being afraid to be up in front of people, and maybe I always had that, but yeah, it didn't really. There's no mystery of like, ooh, misdirection and this and that. I just think that comfortableness on stage was what it gave me.
Okay. So about how old were you when you realized you were funny? I mean, when you
Thursday.
when you knew that you could make people laugh, not
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I guess if I went to the improv or, I mean, I'm 19, the early like 1980-ish. I mean, if I didn't think I could make people laugh, I wouldn't be doing it. Like what
right.
originally, like my main circuit, the place that I made a living before most comedians was the college circuit.
Oh
So
yeah.
years ago, the college circuit was huge. It's nothing anymore. But there was a thing called NACA, National Association of Campus Activities. The history of that, by the way, is really interesting. So in the 60s, there was a college in South Carolina that wanted Diana Ross. And it was too much money. So somebody in that activities office had a brilliant idea. They called the college that wasn't that far away or North Carolina and said, listen, why don't we do this together? We'll have her Friday night, you have her Saturday night. So they called back the agent and said, listen, we can't afford X, but if we get her for this much, the next night she could do the second college for this much. So now both colleges got a break in price, but she
Right.
ended up making more money. And that's how NACA was actually born. So it's called block booking. So the whole point of it was going to a regional area and trying to dot all those colleges one
Oh
night.
yeah. Yeah.
So when I first joined, I did magic, I did stand up, I did improv. So because you had to do an hour, and I didn't have an hour as a comedian, but I got to be on stage for an hour doing magic, comedy magic, adding humor and improv and stuff like that. So, and that's where it really started.
That's that. I mean, so in essence, you're in that part. At least during that part of your comedy career, you were actually like a one man show, or more like not necessarily not a comedian, but a one man show.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, the other thing I learned, and this actually relates very much to the documentary. I once heard a famous actress say nobody was hiring her, so she started her own theater company.
Right.
So with me, for whatever reason, because I did magic, I did this, I did that, I did, it was kind of funny. Like I wasn't, nobody was rushing to be my representation.
Right.
So I joined NACA, and at the time, I was the only self-represented comedian on the college circuit. Most people that represented themselves were mostly like the one guy, the white guy with the guitar,
Right.
the folk singer kind of guy. But I'm trying to think of maybe like a couple of magicians, but in doing anything that's humorous comedy, I was the only one. And so I was booking myself, and this is way before cell phones and
Oh yeah.
my phone bills were like $600 a month.
Wow.
Crazy. But I'm calling all over. So, I mean, I was like my own agent. And in fact, what was so funny is when I'd go to the conferences, I'm hanging out with the agents. I mean, agents and agent/performers.
Right.
Like we're all hanging out together, and I was representing myself. But so, yeah, I was like a one man everything. I booked it. I I was a I did a little of everything just so I could be on stage for an hour.
Now, I'm mentioning this because what you're talking about. Back when I was a musician, uh, when I played in a band, because I don't think I was ever really a musician. Back when I played in a band, and I was looking for places to perform, or for us to perform, there was a book of colleges, just so you have like a directory of colleges with, so you can go through phone numbers and addresses and who you could ask for. And of course, the next year, I mean, people could get fired from those jobs like in the middle of the next volume. But
Right.
I had like 2 or 3 volumes of these books that I had to buy and go through for gigs and stuff, you know, and that was like in the 80s.
Did you do NACA with your band?
No, this is my first time hearing NACA. I did not know a NACA
Oh,
existed.
crap. Oh, because yeah, in the 80s is when it was, the 70s and 80s were like, boom. I mean, and they were what they called regional conferences. So there was New England, East Coast, Southeast. Then there was like Indiana, which is Indiana and Illinois. There's West Coast. And then they had one big national convention. And for bands and stuff, because so it's the regional ones were like 3 days, and every day and night is a show. There are shows
Right.
all up over. And night are the main shows. There's a band. I mean, there's always at least one band closing that night. There are bands in a cabaret setting during the day. I mean, yeah, it was a pretty cool thing. It doesn't exist anymore like it used to.
Yeah, man. I'm gonna play a part of the video, the set that you sent me from Gotham Comedy Club. Like, was it? Now, actually, this was like what, 14 years ago, or how long ago was it?
Yeah, because my girls were about 40, 50. Yeah,
Yeah, they were 4. They were 4 at the time.
Yeah,
Yeah, 4 or 5. Well,
little
at least yeah. Okay, I'm gonna play, like I said, about 2 minutes of it, and I'm gonna tell you, I've watched it twice. Actually, 3. I've watched it 3 times. I think you're hilarious.
Oh, thanks.
And I'm not just saying that because I want to be your friend or anything like that. I really think you're. First of all, I like people who can tell stories that I can't tell. That's to me, that's when comedy is really interesting. What if it's not necessarily someone's a storyteller, but if you have a point of view that I cannot portray, I love that. So that's one thing. But you're also very funny and you're very smart. And I think that a good comedian has to be self-aware and smart.
But and I really do appreciate that. And the truth is, I became funnier later. If I was that funny at the beginning, I might have had a career. But the other reality of all of this is it's really about confidence.
Yes.
Here's a perfect example. You're in DC, right?
I'm in the DC area. I am in Westminster, Maryland, the center of the comedy universe.
So I remember playing, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, but it was a comedy club in DC, and it was literally over a strip club.
Okay.
What was very funny about that club is that you walked into this for the strip club or the comedy club. It's the same front door, but downstairs is the strip club, upstairs the comedy club. But you'd be on stage and guy would walk in and like look really confused. And you could tell right away you want the strip club.
It's funny. There's a place in DC that's set up kind of like that, except for the bottom part's a restaurant now. I think it's called the Beer Baron.
Could have been the same building.
Yeah, but you go up the set of stairs, and if you go straight ahead and up, you're in the comedy club. If you go right, you're going into
the same building. So I was once there, and it's mostly, the local comics are mostly all black. And I had known Martin Lawrence years earlier before he was Martin Lawrence, which again, I should have stayed close to him. So they were really kind of upset about his fame because the truth is, as a stand-up comic, these guys were way funnier. But Martin Lawrence had such an incredible attitude. Now, there were Hollywood people that came to that club looking for the next Eddie Murphy.
Right. Yeah.
And Martin Lawrence walked in looking like Eddie Murphy. He had the glasses, he had the leather pants, and just the swagger, and just, I'm cool. And like, that was it. That's all it took. And not that he doesn't deserve everything he's received, but I feel like, and Eddie Murphy was the same too, by the way. His ego, he was like, yeah, no, I'm going to be famous. Like, there was no question. And for me, I never had that. I never had that confidence. So for the most part, even in the, when I played comedy clubs, I never headlined. I was always the middle act. There were plenty of comedians that'll probably look at you and go, oh, Levin, he's a hack. I plenty of friends but nobody ever looked at me and went, man, he is so funny. I think I got funnier later, but I don't think I ever had the confidence you really, really, really need to sell it.
Now my theory about comedy is that the more self-aware you are, the funnier you can be. And so when you're younger, you don't have that self-awareness to see yourself in the world and see the world in you. And so your point of view is more like just masturbating, because that's it. You don't. But as you get older and you become more self-aware of your frailties, more self-aware of the realities of the world, you can be more funny. You can be funnier because you can see things. Like that self-awareness gives you like a whole new a broader scope.
Right. I totally agree with that. I think there's another component, because it's been said about me by multiple people, and I think they're right. You got to be willing to just let go.
Yes.
Just let go. And obviously, I never got to the point where I could just like let go. Whatever that means. I want, like one great comic once said to me, the problem you have is you want to be liked. And I didn't understand that for years, but I think that means is you're so self-conscious to be on stage. I want everybody to like me, and here's my material, and I'm going to be funny, as opposed to just opening a vein and just bleeding all over the stage.
Now I understand that, and I'm not sure. Okay. I know I don't care about being liked per se, but I do care about peace and quiet in my household. And since I'm married, I don't do material that will rock the boat at home, and sometimes it's nothing. And it's not that my wife goes through my material and says, you can't do this, you can't do that. I know what's going to piss her off. 9 out of 10 times I know. So I say, okay, I'm going to tell this story, but I'm going to,
does she come to every show?
She comes to every show. If she can. Like I have a show that's like 15 minutes from home. 15 minutes from my house, she'll be there. But my next show is in LA, which is like 3,000 miles away. She's not coming to that one.
So can't you do the stuff that would piss her off at the LA show?
But I'm streaming it live.
Gotcha.
And the thing is, how should I put it? She does not like for me to use terms like retarded, racial epithets. She doesn't, she does not like. But my mother raised me to think that there are no bad words, only bad intentions.
That's interesting.
And that's because, and I look at it like this. My given name, my birth name is Glenn Dwayne Fenderson. My mother always called me Glenn. But when I was in trouble, yes, the simple words, they cut like a knife. My mother could have just said, you nappy-headed nigger, because when she says Glenn Dwayne Fenderson, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's nothing to do with the words. It's the energy behind it.
Right.
And so I grew up, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. It was not unusual for me to be in a bar and someone to just say nigger. And I got to the point where it's like, I don't care. That doesn't hurt more than my mother saying Glenn Dwayne Fenderson.
Did you agree? Is that where you grew up, by the way, where you are in Baltimore? Or?
Yeah, I grew up in Baltimore. I live like an hour away now, but yeah, I grew up in Baltimore. And so when my mother said there's no such thing as bad words, only bad intentions, it means something to me. So like I don't look at racial slurs any different than I would as a compliment. I don't care. They're just tools. You know, if I can tell a joke and like if I can tell a joke and without the racial slur or without the homophobic slur, and I don't like calling them slurs, but some people see them that way, I will. But if it's necessary for the joke for some reason, I'll say it.
Right.
You know, and my wife hates that. You know, she can't stand it. But and I tell her sometimes I'm going to do it. Last night we're at dinner with some friends, and somebody had said, I said, I was talking about something in the news, and I said it was an Indian call center, and they said an Indian call center. I said yes. Now I didn't think I had to explain Indian call center because of the but they said, you mean like Indian or Native American? I said, oh, like I said not like that, and they
not casino Indians,
right? Yeah, I said,
Indians,
right. I said not the but the I think I got the taxi cab, and I did, and my wife. Now everybody else starts laughing, and it's then one woman stops and goes, "I think somebody's going to have a problem with that," and my wife goes, "Did I marry a racist?" No, you married someone who doesn't care about racism.
That's very funny.
Hi, I'm GD Fenderson, certified forensic humorist and host of Done Way Past Funny. You have just watched part 1 of our interview with Randy Levin, former comedian and co-host of String Theory, Guitar Obsessed. Please join us as we continue our interview, and when you come back to join us, bring a friend.